Let's get right into this. There's a thing, if you will. I mean, you could say a situation, you could say this is the natural order of things, but as you know, Donald Trump as president is removing a lot of individuals. Some will say because of incompetence, some will say because of political purpose, but the bottom line is Trump is setting up key figures from the middle management all the way up through essentially executive level positions, cabinet positions at the very top when it comes to the future of all these agencies, whether they're a director, a commissioner, an acting whatever, he's setting them up. Now, a big thing that you need to know is that in order to go ahead and control the Social Security Administration, you have to have two main characters. Okay. Two main characters. Character number one is the commissioner of the SSA. That's the big boss. That's the one who reports directly to the president related to things that are going on. When the president wants to make a call to the SSA, the president calls the commissioner directly. That's how it works. That's just the way it is. Now, with that said, the other person that is incredibly important is also the Office of Inspector General's Inspector General. Who is the Inspector General? Well, that's like you wouldn't call it the king, right? Well, I guess in today's standards, you might like king, queen, or queen, king would be interchangeable. So we'll say if we just keep it male, the commissioner would be the king, and the prince would be the Office of Inspector General. Now, what does the Office of Inspector General, the Inspector General, actually do? The Inspector General is basically a large group of attorneys that essentially work for the commissioner. They battle things out, they review fraud, they review similar fault, they find wastefulness, etc. Which is why it's kind of interesting to see the DOGE via Elon, not going more head to head back and forth with this particular group. But the bottom line is you need those two people in order to fully have control over the Social Security Administration. Why? Well, okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to go in a new direction with the SSA. Would you use the commissioner for that, right? So that, if it's internal with the SSA, you would use the commissioner to go ahead and direct the chessboard pieces across the board in a particular manner. However, if something arises, if something's a problem, if something needs to be investigated, the prosecutor, then you would have to go ahead and watch out for what's called the Inspector General, because that's the person who sees what's going on and chooses whether or not to prosecute essentially those things that potentially could be, problematic, harmful against the law with the Social Security Administration. So those two people, the boss and basically the judge of, what's going on within the SSA, you have to control those two positions. Now, very quickly, President Trump came in, got rid of the other acting commissioner, and put in the new acting commissioner, Michelle King. This is specifically from the SSA website. I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough, but just as a side note so you understand, this is essentially what the commissioner comes from. This person, Michelle King, she comes from a long history of working at the SSA. Lots and lots and lots of positions. She literally climbed the ladder all the way to the top. She is an inside the SSA employee who made it all the way to the very, very top. That is not super common because usually they'll put in political individuals. But you could think of this individual as kind of like your cross-examination to Biden's Commissioner Kijakazi. Let me go through this real quick. That way you have an understanding as to who your new commissioner is, who's in charge of your benefits. Michelle King was named acting commissioner for Social Security in January of 2025, so the end of 2025. In this role, Michelle leads a workforce of approximately 58,000 employees and provides oversight for the programs and services the agency administers. These programs affect individuals at several points in their lives, yada, 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 affect 71 million people, 1.5 trillion annually, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Michelle began her career with the agency, here's the important part, as a bilingual claims representative. Okay, so like the very, entry level positions, a bilingual claims representative in 1994 in the Sterling, Illinois field office. In 1998, she moved to the agency's headquarters and began working, and that's the key if you want to go up, and then began working in the Office of Public Service and Operations Support, which is OPSOS. Michelle held various positions of increasing responsibility in OPSOS, and in 2007, she was appointed to the Senior Executive Service as the Deputy Associate Commissioner for OPSOS. So she became the boss of the division that she was working at the headquarters. You can see where this is going. Michelle was the lead executive for the Ready Retirement Initiative from 2007 to 2009, developing the agency's online retirement, disability, and Medicare application iClaim system. During her career, Michelle has also held executive positions in the Office of Retirement and Disability Policy and the Office of Budget, Finance, and Management, including serving as the agency's chief financial officer. So this is a person who basically has some mathematical skills, some actuarial stuff going on. Immediately prior to becoming acting commissioner, Michelle was the deputy commissioner for operations. So in other words, she was like a step down, basically. Trump saw that. He liked her background. He put her in. I think she will ultimately get replaced by a political option, but the same thing. Commissioner Kijikazi under Biden was then replaced by Commissioner Martin O'Malley. We went from the nonprofit world person to a political person. Same thing is likely to happen with this. That's why she's only an acting commissioner. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go through it. In this role, she'll be responsible for 1,200 field offices, 7 Social Security card centers, 24 national call centers, 8 processing centers, 55 area director offices, 15 workload support units, 10 regional offices, 4 headquarters support components, blah, 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 blah. Lots of places, okay? Michelle earned her master's of public administration from Northern Illinois University in 1997, which, just to be clear, she started working at the SSA the next year. So this is like her entire life, she's worked for the SSA kind of gig. With a concentration in public policy and organizational development, she graduated cum laude with a dual Bachelor of Arts degree in political science and public administration from Augustana College, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it, in Rock Island, Illinois in 1993, and earned a minor in speech communication. So, wait a minute. So, hold on. Let me check something real quick. She had a master's in 1997. She graduated cum laude with a dual Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. Oh, so that's interesting. She got dual bachelors thereafter. Oh, no. Before that, in 1993. Okay, cool. Got it. Yeah. Okay, so she went from 1993, then she got her master's 4 years later, 1997, then she went to go work for the SSA. That's kind of surprising. The SSA started her at a particularly low position for having that master's. So I'm not sure what happened with that. Obviously, cream rises to the top. She did a great job. She goes to the top, but still, they started her in a very low position. In 2023, Michelle was awarded the Distinguished Presidential Rank Award for sustained exceptional performance. That was done under Biden, right? Michelle has a public leadership certificate from Harvard's Kennedy School and executive leadership certificate from the American University. She is also a graduate of the Duke Executive Leadership and the Federal Executive Institute Leadership in a Democratic Society program. So here's the deal. Trump picked somebody who appears to come from the blood of the SSA, from the linens, from the skin, from the organs of the SSA. And he picks somebody, to be very clear, who's not political at all. This individual in particular basically has been recognized by Biden's team, hence presidential rank award. This individual has gone from literally, it's like the classic phrasing, mailroom all the way to the top. So as a result of that, what I think is really important to understand with this whole thing is that he picked somebody that would not seem like they were fiddling with the system, but rather they've always been part of the system, and now they get to lead the system by just ranking up one more. Now, that is the commissioner, which Trump already has. Then we go to, of course, the OIG position. Now, a lot of you are thinking, cool, he must be picking one hell of a whippy, aggressive, spicy attorney to go ahead and fall in line with what he wants with the SSA. Now, remember, OIG is in charge of a lot of things, and some of the stuff ends up with the cadre division. If you ever get a chance to look up the cadre division, I had a hearing with them recently, but the bottom line is those claims, very special, fraud claims, hearings, judges, special judges, cadre division. You ever get a chance, look it up. Point is this: Social Security Administration has basically, no OIG, or rather they have no inspector general right now. Now, why did this happen? Okay, so if we go back in time, there was an inspector general put in by Trump who was accused by many of the Democrats for, essentially tampering with whistleblowers. And the whistleblowers blew the whistle because they were doing a bunch of overpayment claims against the SSI people when they got those COVID stimulus payments. And what happened thereafter is that the inspector general was caught not being very forthright with the politicians in specifically the Senate office. And as a result of that, right, they pressured basically for her to go ahead and withdraw, to stand down, etc. Now, what's interesting is that it took them a very long time to get her to step down, way longer than everybody expected. And basically, the pressure just got so big. There were a bunch of articles coming out about her all over the news saying she did this, she did that, she did this, she did that. And then ultimately, when she went to go step down, the letter she created was not an apology letter. It was like, hey, I did great things. Rest of y'all, do what you want, but I did great things. Now, since that, we haven't really had an inspector general. Now, at first, I thought clearly we must have an inspector general because you have to have somebody in that position to control the SSA in total, right? And so I was like, okay, let me look this up. So I went to the inspector general website, right? I went over there. I was like, okay, what do they have to say about this? Let me read it to you. And I'm going to read it solely for this one section so you kind of get what's going on. The inspector general, Michelle L. Anderson, is the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General's Assistant Inspector General for audit performing the duties of the Inspector General. So in other words, a lot of cute words thrown together that make a crap sentence, but the important part is Assistant Inspector General for audit performing the duties of the Inspector General. In that capacity, Ms. Anderson oversees a nationwide workforce of nearly 500 criminal investigations, auditors, information technology specialists, attorneys, program analysts, budget and management analysts, human resource specialists, and public affairs specialists under her direction. The SSA Office of the Inspector General, OIG, is charged with conducting and supervising audits and investigations relating to the program operations of the SSA. So think of them as kind of like the department of, basically defense of the SSA and kind of like your judicial side of the SSA as well, right? They're kind of like, they're kind of like their own little military, their own little army, plus the judges and the attorneys and all that jazz. So they're a big part of the SSA, and it's also the group that has the secret police that come out and basically follow you around in case they want to investigate you. Now, with that said, SSA OIG keeps the Social Security Commissioner and Congress fully and currently informed about problems and deficiencies relating to the administration of such programs and operations and necessity for in progress of corrective actions. So they don't have one. So then I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe they didn't update their website. So then I went over to this group because, they have a council. Basically, there's a council of the Inspector Generals on integrity and efficiency. And their website says, Social Security Administration, the Inspector General position is officially vacant. If you'd like to apply, you can apply through basically them. They have a thing there. So the point is this, of what I need you to understand. Trump needs to get the Inspector General that he wants. Once he controls the Commissioner and the Inspector General and the House and the Senate and the Oval Office and enough of the judicial judge's side of things, he will be able to do pretty much what he wants to do, with some constitutional challenges occurring, of course, and going through the judicial process up to the Supreme Court. But for the most part, if he controls that, ultimately the Supreme Court will lean towards the legislative branch, Senate and the House, going ahead and creating law that the judicial side, Supreme Court, will stay out of, right? And that's what the Supreme Court usually does. They say, okay, well, here's the rule. Here's how we interpret it against the Constitution. But if they want to do some massive new program or they want to do some really big changes, right, usually the Supreme Court will stand back and allow Congress to do those things. Now, remember, your rights to your benefits are shit. They're not good. They're very bad because in 1937, the Supreme Court ruled that they're basically just part of a taxation system. You don't actually have a definitive right or private right to those benefits. That's why when a lot of you guys are like, oh, I have a right. And I'm sitting in the back going like, no, you don't. And it's important you understand why you don't, because then you will see how every president that comes down the line, including what I thought Biden was going to do this, but I was very naive with that whole situation. I thought he was going to go ahead and give a private right to Social Security recipients to actually have their benefits, so that their benefits change or get worse. You could sue the SSA to have them basically be put in place. But no, Biden was super inactive. He was like, just in my opinion, he's one of the worst presidents we've ever had. But he gave us a really great commissioner. So it's like one of these love-hate problem situations. So, with that said, once Trump essentially picks out his OIG, a lot of you were like, well, he can't do this, so he can't do that. DOGE and Elon can't do this, and they can't do that. It's not going to matter what you think he can or cannot do because he will have ownership of the most important chess pieces on the field. Once he has the OIG, he has control over the prosecution and basically the review of changes and fraud within the SSA and whoever they want to prosecute. Let me give you an example. Let's say that the SSA wants to go after some claimant, some beneficiary, right? And let's say that there is good reason or even bad reason, just whatever reason, right? If the inspector general is with Trump on this situation and the commissioner is in line with it, right? Then basically they're just going to continue forward doing their investigation against an individual, which is why I made that giant video of potential red flags for you showing up on OIG's list and DOGE's list as a disabled person or even a retired person. There were some of those in there as well. So the point that I'm getting at here is that whether you love Trump or you hate Trump, because I know it kind of splits into that, I always stick with the middle stuff and kind of deliver the left and the right. And when you see that, 5% of people in the chat or the comments that are like, I hate you, you're a Trumper, you're a super lib or whatever, when they attack me with that stuff, you gotta understand, if you attack me, you're probably on the extremes, on the very, very extremes. The grand majority of people want to know kind of what's going on. And if I'm saying something that's so offensive to you, you're probably on the extremes. Like that should be a good barometer for you as to like where politically you're at. My whole point with this is, look, the SSA commissioner controls the SSRs, Social Security rulings. They control emergency releases, emergency messages, quick program changes, stuff like that. They control that. Whereas, essentially the OIG, they handle the prosecutions, they handle the review of fraud, they handle the review of inefficiency, etc. And then, of course, you have the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office. They're the ones who create new laws, but mostly when it comes to Social Security Administration, it's laws about the purse. So when it comes to a lot of these administrations, you will notice that the big, big thing that Congress does is mostly handle the purse strings for a lot of what's going on with these different groups. It's almost always about spending money in some way. How much are they going to spend on this program? How many IRS agents are they going to be able to get? In other words, how much money are they going to be able to give them to go ahead and hire those people? It's about money, right? And then, of course, you have the president who is doing executive orders, executive actions, right? Executive orders are orders for things inside the country. Executive agreements are agreements with other countries. And that's where the real president's power lies. It's all his ability to, do agreements with other nations because he doesn't require Congress for a lot of that stuff. So as a result of that, the only final group are basically the judges. And the judges tend to, for the purposes of Social Security benefits, stay out of it. It's not a highly contested area. It's not a highly contested administration. So once he picks his OIG, that's it. He will have control. Oh, well, DOGE is doing this and I'm scared. It doesn't matter what Elon does, right? It's just not going to matter because once he has access to both the OIG and the commissioner, he's got the commissioner now, then at that point, you could say, oh, the judge is going to restrict the DOGE from doing stuff. Cool. He'll just go to the inspector general who he got in, who he hired in, who he, went through the process of that. And then at that point, whatever numbers he wants to have handed to him, which he can then hand over to Elon, he'll do that. Right? He has the capacity at that point to go through that process. I mean, sure, a judge may order that Elon can't have it. He's got to destroy all these different things and yada, yada. But, at the end of the day, he's going to get the information. So I just want to make clear so everybody has an understanding as to like what is coming in the future. Because a lot of people are like, oh, all these judges are going to stop Trump and Elon from doing this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. You know what I mean? You got to understand that's not how, look, if you're one of those types who thinks de facto the living, breathing Constitution as it is standing over the top of all of these executive leaders, breathing heavily, saying, you better stay in line, then you probably don't have an understanding as to how executives lead things. Executives, people who own mega companies, people who own, large pieces of land, people who are in charge of entire counties, states, the federal government, right? People who are in charge of entire countries, like, right? Some of these countries that have actual leaders, right? And if you look at it, the way power works, just to solidify it down, make it easy, the biggest thing you can own is a country. And that happens all over there's lots of those on earth. There's lots of kings, there's lots of emperors, there's lots of all that jazz going. I mean, not emperors, but you know what I mean? There's lots of rulers that basically own the country. Okay. Then you go down from the ruler thing to basically, and you have a lot of options here, because ruling a country is ruling the people, the businesses, and then of course the land as well, right? So then you get into, more political rules, right? You get to rule over an area, but you don't actually own that country or that area. Like, you just get to rule over what happens to it. So you get from that power to that power. Then you get into owning businesses, right? So businesses, you got lots of power, but it's limited to that business as to what you can do. Maybe you could shape, manipulate, modify an industry. If you're really big, like Walmart could or Apple computers could, they could manipulate an industry, right? But they're limited to that particular, company, the people who buy the products, the people who are buying the competitors' products, and of course the people who work there. And then you get to, once you get down from the companies, then you get to ownership of large areas of land that don't have a lot of company interests, and then you get into basically, smaller and smaller and smaller power grabs from there. So the main thing they have to keep in mind is that these ultra leaders, these mega CEOs, these rulers, these kings, the rules are put in place for us. It would be nice if they applied to them, but as you can see now, it's Trump's turn to go ahead and go after all the prosecutors that went after him. And now you're seeing federal charges against all these prosecutors that went after him. You have to understand, it's not the way the country is supposed to work. Biden did it. Trump is now doing it as a counterpoint. The executives, I mean, look at, I don't want to say anything about Hillary because I want to survive this week. But the point is this. We're at the weekend though. I might make it. The point is this, okay? The rules require a prosecutor. And the prosecutor has to be able to drag that person in front of a judge. And when somebody's in power, that is extremely difficult to do. But if you control the prosecutor and the judge and the ruler of an agency, and then you also control the prosecutor, the main OIG that oversees all the OIGs through Congress, and also the House and the Senate, the people who make the new laws, right? And the president, the judge of what he wants to happen, what he doesn't want to happen, etc. And then, sure, some stuff will end up in the courts. You control the ultimate design of what comes out. And then, of course, you throw on top of that presidential immunity and, you've got your own mess. So, the bottom line is just so that everybody is aware, this is structurally what's coming in the not too distant future. Now, with that said, I will say this. Is Elon finding fraud a good thing? Yes. Do we like the way it's all occurring? Not so much. It seems, but at the same time, you have to counter argument that. You have to say, hey, look, what happened to the actuaries at the SSA? What happened to the OIG people who, found some of this fraud, but not all of this fraud? Remember, OIG finds every single year a lot of inefficiency, a lot of fraud, all that stuff. And, every time I talk with an SSA person, they're like, there's no way that they could go ahead and commit this fraud. Our computer system won't allow it. And then I'm like, cool. Did you go to the Office of Inspector General's website where, two people working in that office, one person working in that office committed fraud? And they're like, oh, geez. Well, okay. Well, that's because they did an admin change, or they did a variance allowance, and blah, 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 blah. And and their friend was this, and their manager was busy, and they didn't cry. All these programs can be manipulated. And that's one of the big things. If you learn anything from this video, when you build anything, a computer program, a company, a website, anything, there are various levels of administrative access until you get to what is called the super admin. What is the super admin? The super admin is the person who can change the base core functions, who can modify, who can change any rule, who can modify an output, anything. It can completely go against the program. They can change it. That is called a super admin. And so what you're probably wondering is, who's the super admin of the SSA? Well, that would be a tech person in combination with the commissioner, in combination with the inspector general. That's really who has that capacity. But it is interesting that Elon, gaining access to the data, could, with a bunch of kids, go through it relatively quickly and find a lot of this fraud. Some of the fraud was pointed out earlier, right? 6.5 million 112-year-olds, right? But at the same time, it's just very interesting that we accepted the fraud, that we lived with the fraud, that the fraud had billions of dollars over so many years of income for tax purposes attributed to it. It was kind of like its own little Ukraine, a cute little internal Ukraine. All right. With that said, I need about 5-10 minutes to get ready for the next video. I need to grab a drink. I kind of try to get prepped as quickly as possible. I was super late. I'm so sorry about that. I will see you at the next video in about, I would say, out of the 5-10 minutes. Please remember to like and subscribe. We only have 209 likes right now. Hit that like button. Don't be afraid. Give a little wiggle. Give a little tap. Come on, get that like button going. With that said, I will see you at the next video shortly. Please remember to go to Google and type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. My goal is to see those reviews up there because I really like them. The fivers, you know what I mean? They make me feel really good in the morning, which it takes a lot to kind of get me up at this point because I've gone through so much. Also, medical update. They did an endoscopy. They did a colonoscopy. They did find the hernia issue. They did not find cancer. That was the main goal. As you know, I've been clearing my throat a lot, having difficulty with some of the things I was saying. A lot of that is because of Barrett's esophagus being really bad in me, but it is not at the point of cancer. So, silver bullet. We danced around that one. All right. Anyways, again, I go live Mondays and Thursdays. So we're playing with those days to answer questions. And then if you want to do a private session, mini contract is below so that you can go ahead and hire me for an hour to figure out some legal issue that you have. I will catch you later. You have a wonderful day, and I will see you at the next video in the next 5 to 10 minutes. See you soon. Be safe, and I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.